spinning,
Right.
spinning. The spinning circle icon, maybe they should put that on the other side of the Steelers helmet, right?
Right.
And actually have it so it moves, so the circle moves, so it spins around, because it's like, we're waiting. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, and whoops. I always forget. 3, 2, 1. Steelers and Vikings. It sounds like a show on Thursday Night Football. It is part 1 of the Week 14 preview here on the Audible. And Steelers side first. Ben's going to retire. But is Ben going to call the plays and run the show, Bloom? Because, well, that might just work. However, as longtime suffering Steelers fans, we know that this is the type of game that they lose. Hey, Minnesota just lost to Detroit.
Right.
And the Steelers lose to Minnesota. But it's on the road, right? Steelers, Ben, last hurrah, last dance, whatever you want to say. What are you expecting from our beloved Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, two teams, a showdown between two teams that could not beat the Detroit Lions. That's what we have on Thursday night. Call it the Lions Bowl. Yes, the main story here, and it was very reminiscent of last year in the second half against the Colts, the game that got the Steelers into the playoffs, basically. Ben Roethlisberger draws plays up in the dirt. And yeah, as we said in the recap show, we would joke that Ben Roethlisberger is the offensive coordinator, but maybe he just should be the offensive coordinator, at least for this last run with him. And that's obviously very good for Deontay Johnson. It's good enough for Pat Freiermuth. And this Minnesota defense allowed Jared Goff to do his thing last week. The Lions led for most of that game. So Minnesota's defense is vulnerable. You definitely want to play Freiermuth and maybe even Chase Claypool, because you would think if this offense gets into Ben Roethlisberger mode, then there's going to be more shots downfield. There's going to be more passing. That could be a good thing for Najee Harris, who's still in your lineup, obviously, but is in a bit of a slump as far as scoring touchdowns, as far as having big games. You would expect a big offensive game. Cecil, I want to do, and you were dressed for this, so you helped encourage me to do this. I do want to do a quick history lesson because, of course, it all started with the Immaculate Reception, or it started with the drafts. But the first Super Bowl the Steelers won, Super Bowl IX, against the Minnesota Vikings.
Of course.
And they set some records. You know, that game was played in Tulane Stadium right here in New Orleans. And 119 total yards. The Steelers had more penalty yards than the Vikings had yards. That was the steel curtain for you. 17 yards on 21 carries. And the Steelers ran the ball 57 times in that game. Bradshaw only threw the ball 14 times. So Mac Jones is saying, well, I could have maybe thrown the ball 14 times last week. In a Super Bowl, though, Steelers won 16-6. The rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, and the Steelers, it all started with Mean Joe Green.
Yeah.
It all started with him. He's the one. I remember having this conversation at lunch with Jerome Jurinovich. Remember him from
CNN, Headline Sports.
Headline Sports, and everyone's like, I have no idea what that is, old guys.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Minnesota is hoping that they could go to a galaxy far, far away after losing to the Lions. Adam Thielen banged up with the ankle, didn't practice on Tuesday. On a Tuesday, probably not going to play in this one. Dalvin Cook was limited, but they're saying he's not going to play because it is a short week, even though he missed last week's game. So that means more Alexander Madison. Plenty of Justin Jefferson, Bloom. And against the Steelers defense, what can we expect from those limited Minnesota assets?
Yeah, against TJ Watt, right? And that's the question here, is how much of a stamp can TJ Watt put on this game? Maybe the Steelers defense is one, but this is a Kirk Cousins offense, although the Steelers run defense has actually been the Achilles heel. So maybe it is an Alexander Madison game. Also, this could be a pretty strong offensive game on both sides where the offenses spur each other on to more production. And with Justin Jefferson playing the way he is, he looks like he's going to be a league winner right now. He had the best 4-game stretch of receiving yards of any wide receiver in Vikings history. That means something. When you break a Vikings wide receiver record, that is not easy. There are some pretty amazing wide receivers that you're stacking up against there. So Justin Jefferson is going to do his thing. Alexander Madison in this run game is going to do its thing against the Steelers' run defense that has been poor. And all that inclined me to say, play KJ Osborne as the number 2 receiver. Play Tyler Conklin as a quasi-wide receiver at tight end. and expect there to be a lot of scoring in this one, a lot of fantasy football overachievers in a game. And this is going to be a theme, maybe not truly a survival game, but if either of these teams have any chance to make the playoffs, they have to win. So this is another one of those quasi playoff games where both of these teams know, because, Cecil, I don't know about you, it's kind of like when you hear a car slam on the brakes and you're waiting to hear, is there a that was like the Vikings losing to the Lions, and then was the crash going to be Mike Zimmer getting fired, right? Didn't happen, but you have to wonder what kind of state Minnesota is in for this one. Certainly at the beginning of the year, we were feeling the same way, and they rallied. So it's a lot of interesting layers to this one, and it should be fun to have fantasy football players in it.
Just have your quarterback call the plays, Steelers.
Yeah.
That's it. Anytime Coach Hodson would let me call the plays, it was 36 OPQB drag. Do you know why it was that play? And always that play, Bloom.
It was the only one you could remember the name of?
That's one. I couldn't remember our plays. Our plays were literally like pop, pass out. So I would go to the sidelines. I'd get the play from the coach. I'd run back to the huddle, and then I'd be like, I don't know. So anyway, 36 OPQB drag means I would get the ball from my best friend, Big E. And yes, my best friend's my center. If you got your hands on man's taint, then, you'd be best friends for life. Anyway, so I'd get the ball from Big E. I'd pitch it to the running back. And then I would fake to block. And then I'd run out for a pass. And it was thrown back to the quarterback. Always a touchdown. So, yes, anytime it's like, call whatever you want. I would 36 OPQB drag. Yeah. It's the only one I can remember. And it kind of sounds like a play because all of the other plays were so simple. So simple, I couldn't remember them. Oh, well. All right. So simple is the Baltimore Ravens offense. I don't know. Simple but effective. Kind of. Shansa, maybe, right? If we're speaking in Espanol. Shansa, Ravens, and the Browns are up next. And the Ravens side of things, like, it needs to be a little bit cleaner for Lamar Jackson. He certainly could get helped out by a guy like Rashad Bateman. That would be helpful if the kid were to do a little bit more in this contest. Drew, stop dropping those passes, Mark Andrews. So, yeah, and Lamar Jackson going to do his thing. Devontae Freeman is a flex player, whatever. But, like, the Ravens offense hasn't been as crisp or clean as we normally expect, Blue.
Yeah, and part of that slump, we got a lot of divisional matchups that we've already seen this year. And we saw this as a 16-10 slop fest as far as offensive football when these teams met in the last month. Lamar Jackson had 4 interceptions in that game. You're still going to go with him, though, just because of the ceiling that he presents as a runner, as a passer. You're still going to play Mark Andrews. You're probably still going to play Marquise Brown. And we haven't seen that ceiling game since the Baltimore-Minnesota game. We haven't seen a ceiling game from Brown or Lamar Jackson, for that matter. Cleveland, maybe not the team that you would expect that against. However, the possibilities there, and as that's happening, a lot of other quarterback stock is going down. And on that note, Devontae Freeman, right? This is a game where Devontae Freeman, he has been a fantasy running back 1 over the last couple of weeks. That doesn't appear to be changing. And Cecil, as we flip to the Cleveland side, remember, the Ravens were already extremely thin at cornerback. And the one thing holding that team together was Marlon Humphrey, one of the best in the league. Now he's out for the season. So it may well be that the Ravens, by necessity, have to go back to the run and grinding out long drives to keep their defense on the sidelines because there's a lot of vulnerabilities now in that secondary.
Yeah, and then you wish Cleveland was at full strength.
Right, or had a quarterback.
Yeah, or had a quarterback. Yeah, that's kind of important, right? The problem with the Browns, where do you want to start? We've got David Njoku on the COOF list. We have Harrison Bryant maybe going to IR with the ankle. Don't have an update on that since it was first reported on Monday. So Austin Hooper immediately. Austin Hooper or Tyler Conklin? That's a nice question since we've talked about both so far, Bloom. Like Austin Hooper or Tyler Conklin?
Yeah.
It's kind of a good choice this week because Conklin's going to be a de facto wide receiver, as you mentioned, with Minnesota. And Hooper, that's it. I mean, Harrison Bryant down and Njoku on the COOF list. Like, yeah, it's going to be an Austin Hooper type of day. At least it could be. And then the Browns are saying, well, we'll use Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the backfield at the same time. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you should be doing that.
I know.
Yeah, we know. It's like when the Ben retirement news came out. It's like, yes, we know, okay? Yeah. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the same time. Yes, more, right. Please.
Right, the upgrade Browns offense, that was the spinning icon. Cease waiting, waiting,
Yeah,
waiting,
we're
waiting.
waiting.
Now it's the bye week. Hey, let's get both of our two best offensive players on the field at the same time. What a novel concept. So it's going to be a Chubb Hunt game, although the Ravens were really good at stacking them up in the first game. Jarvis Landry actually had a pretty good game, 6 for 111, I think, in that one, and he's rested as healthy as he's been for a while coming out of the bye. So maybe Jarvis Landry has some what the heck flex upside as he's dropped in some prominence as this offense is going to run through the backfield. You mentioned Austin Hooper; he should have those tight end targets concentrated to him, so that certainly makes him, at the very least, a Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki buy coverage, if not a streamer or someone that you might be playing down the stretch if this offense can warm up. And look, this team's still very much alive. Both of these teams are very much alive. I was saying this with Danny Kelly on the couch yesterday.
Great show, by the way. Great having Danny on.
Danny's fantastic. So the last 5 games for Baltimore are Cleveland, Green Bay, at Cincinnati, the Rams, and the Steelers. They could win or lose all 5 of those games. Mm-hmm. Similarly, Cleveland has Baltimore, Vegas, Green Bay, Pittsburgh. It's basically the same schedule almost. Cincinnati. So these teams all in the AFC control their own destiny. So this is a game that has a lot on the line. Again, I think without Marlon Humphrey, because I think there's a cascade effect, right? It's not just that they lost Marlon Humphrey. It's that all of these other poor cornerbacks move up a spot. So now they're all more exposed. Can Baker Mayfield take advantage of that? He got a little chance to rest all those myriad of injuries. So this is a game, I think. And remember, for Baker, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars are hanging in the balance this offseason, whether he's going to get that extension. So much on the line for this one. I wish we could say that for all the games this weekend, but I'm not sure we can.
Yeah, not in the next one anyway. Jaguars and Tennessee, the next game up. And, I don't know if you want to go over history with this one because go to the Jaguars side, not as interesting. The James Robinson thing is interesting, and I feel bad for James. But he says he was benched. He believes he was benched after he fumbled. Set out for 3 series, which spanned 20 plays, but returned to the game and took 3 carries in the 37-7 loss last week. Now, it is the second straight week that he has fumbled, but Urban Meyer sending the message. I wish Urban Meyer would just get out of the NFL. Sorry. He's a lousy head coach. Go to college, make your millions, be the czar of some sort of college program. That's fine. Go do your thing. But in the NFL, I think he's a terrible coach. I don't think he's a good man. That being aside, it's not a fantasy take, Bloom, but that's what I think of when I think of Jacksonville. I think of some old man or bar getting a lappy, and like, hey, this is what we have. This is what Laquan Treadwell talk coming up.
Yeah, and it is fantasy relevancies because this team is just dejected, and they probably were dejected before the season. Asking them to go out and be professionals when they're not being led by a professional, well, it wears you down. And with James Robinson, the one thing we could trust in this offense, now we can't trust him. These teams have played once this year. It was 37-19 Tennessee. It was a Derrick Henry game, and it was a James Robinson game. He had 18 for 149 in that one. So what does the Jacksonville's offense look like? I don't even, do I have to think about it? Really? I don't even want to think about it, Cease. My brain says no. Let's just turn the page to Tennessee.
Let's turn the page to Tennessee, starting with that Titans defense, as Saline says. Starting that Titans defense. Let's talk about the Titans offense, and let's talk about Julio Jones. Now, we had a little bit of a debate on the waiver wire show, because for me, Julio is like, okay, I can trust him as a flex play. Maybe not more, but maybe there's more there, Bloom. I think the risk of re-injury is really high. Maybe that's where my trepidation comes from with Julio Jones, but he's got maybe a game in him before that re-injury happens, and we hope he stays healthy forever and ever and ever.
Right.
But as we said on the waiver wire show, how often do you get a Hall of Famer who's the number 1 wide receiver for his team on the waiver wire in week 14?
Yeah.
Doesn't happen often. So if you got Julio, you got him, smoke him if you got him. Play him if you got him, but what kind of expectations for Julio? And then, of course, this rushing attack.
You would think Julio is going to be he was out with a concussion last week. Shaq Griffin, the number 1 corner for the Jags. We'll see if he's back this week, but you would think that the still job one for the offense and for the Jags defense is going to be running the ball, and that's Dante Foreman's music. So I think Dante Foreman's a good play. I would expect he comes out of the bye as the clear lead back and as the focal point of the game plan to reestablish that running game. Remember, this team is 8-4. This team is still very much in the thick of it, and they could still get Derrick Henry back during the playoffs. Ooh, twists. And so maybe even Ryan Tannehill becomes a potential streamer here if you're trying to cover Jalen Hurts. And then you have also, I'm not saying for fantasy, but just as a football note here, Cecil, don't forget they signed Golden Tate to the practice squad. Well, all of a sudden, if you have Julio Jones and Golden Tate, well, you got the makings of a passing game there. The other thing we're going to watch here is Jeremy McNichols probably back from the concussion. John Trail Hilliard did some things when McNichols was out, enough to earn a job with the team. Is it enough for him to be ahead of McNichols, maybe even have some fantasy relevance? We're going to watch that. But Tennessee, a much needed, well-timed bye for this team to gather themselves. They're still in it in the wide open AFC.
Kansas City had a bye week, and then they had another bye week when they played Denver.
Yeah.
So third bye week, is that what we can say? It's Vegas Raiders against Kansas City. This one's at Arrowhead or whatever they call it now. But it's the Vegas side, and Derek Carr, Bloom, here's my history lesson.
Okay.
He is 69 for 105 for 823 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 picks in the last 3 games against Kansas City. So he shows up and shows out. But this one's on the road. Everyone check NFLweather.com because the wind did bother it bothered Teddy certainly. But if one of his offensive linemen farts when he throws a pass, it bothers him anyway. It's just hard to flutter on the ball. But so the conditions at Arrowhead were a little bit rough. Now, we're also in the time of year where we've seen this before, right? We saw this in week 10, and Carr had 261 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT. Darren Waller looks like he's in good shape with the knee/oblique, considered day-to-day as opposed to week-to-week, according to interim head coach Rick Bisaccia. And that's what he said on Monday. So we'll see if that helps. Hunter Renfrow has been helping, certainly, with his over 100-yard game last time out. They're going to need him in this game against the Chiefs. No Kenyon Drake, so that means Josh Jacobs will get more as a receiver if he can hold up to that workload. So Kansas City will win, Bloom, but can the Raiders put up enough of a fight and be fantasy relevant with the assets that you would normally start, including Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, etc.?
Right. And this was a team, the Raiders, that tended to play over their heads against the Chiefs recently.
Yes.
And then they played this year and lost 41-14. And it was the game. It was a game, Steve, going into the game we were saying, can we trust the Chiefs offense? Can we trust Patrick Mahomes? I think I even had, do you bench Patrick Mahomes as one of the thumbnails that week? And it was a resounding no, but then this offense reverted back to stuck in the driveway self. So can the Raiders answer that? Can Derek Carr answer that? You're going to play Hunter Renfrow, who now is just a 100-yard downfield receiver all of a sudden. You're going to play Josh Jacobs. I think he had 9 catches last week. Without Kenyon Drake there, even in PPR leagues, he's going to be a big play. He's kind of like their Najee Harris, maybe not the most efficient, but he's going to get touchdown opportunities, and he's going to get a lot of catches out of the backfield. If Darren Waller's back, and we saw him go from week to day to day, that's an upgrade. If he's back, you're going to play him. If he's not back, will we go to the island of Foster Moreau? Certainly, the paper matchup against Kansas City looks good against tight ends, but this has been one of the best defenses in the league over the last month and a half. So after what happened last week, probably not with Moreau unless you're desperate. The Raiders are desperate. Somehow they're still alive. What can they summon up in that death scene? See, there's so many games that are going to be happening over the next 2 or 3 weeks. We all know it from the movie. It's they're about to land the finishing blow. What can you summon up to survive? What can you summon up to get off the deck and say, no, not yet. Today is not a good day to die. That's what the Raiders are facing this week.
Hoka he Lakota. So how about the Chiefs side, which instead of saying stop making McCole Hardman a thing or trying to,
they're not. They heard you.
Yeah. Well, then they went to Byron Pringle, and it was worse. Maybe you should go to McCole Hardman. Stop trying to make Byron Pringle a thing. You've got Tyreek and you've got Kelsey. Okay. Yeah. And maybe you'll run the ball. I don't know. It's Kansas City. It's at home, and we'll see what they can do to continue this win streak to continue kind of flexing. And, a New England, Kansas City AFC Championship, I would tune in for that.
Yeah. Doesn't it seem like if there's chaos, those are the teams that have the wherewithal to navigate that chaos?
Yes.
And especially the
and almost
self-knowledge.
welcome it. They almost welcome it.
Yes, and they have knowledge of self, both of those teams. I think Kansas City has learned a lot about themselves over the course of this year, both on offense and on defense. And the combination of a team that can put together long drives, because remember, even when they were beating the Raiders 41-14, it was not that they were doing the air show. It was still a lot of nickel diming the defense, matriculating the ball down the field. But as you said, even coming off of that game against Denver, you like Kelsey Hill, you like Mahomes, and maybe you like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you expect the Chiefs to control this game, it should be a Clyde Edwards-Helaire game. But remember, last time out, Darrell Williams had 9 catches for 101 and a touchdown. And Darrell Williams had 3 for 60 last week. He was the best weapon in the offense last week, Cease. How are you going to put that back in the bottle? So, we'll see. But it is interesting to observe that in this amazingly chaotic NFL season, at a point when so many times the Chiefs looked unsteady, now the Chiefs look like the team, like you said, that is potentially a favorite to, if not go to the AFC title game, at least take some teams out along the way.
Yeah, the New Orleans Saints are trying to get past the New York Jets, and if you can't do it now, I mean, honestly, Bloom, I could flower this up and go through the names and go through the games, but what the hell is New Orleans doing? Like, seriously, Sean Payton's like, this is another opportunity for Taysom Hill, and I think he'll do well. Why? What? Because of your opponent?
Right.
Okay, if that's your answer, I know Sean Payton's not going to say that because never give him bulletin board material, and this one's on the road in the Big Apple. But, like, Saints, what are you doing, man? Like, you've got some assets, and then you've got your quarterback situation, an absolute mess, an absolute bungled mess by paying Taysom Hill, by playing Taysom Hill, and having it not work out, and then only having Trevor Siemian behind him.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, they lost Jameis Winston, but it's an absolute mess unless you're talking about fantasy. Then you're excited, right? Unless you're getting -3 for interceptions. And Taysom Hill is going to single-handedly revive the debate of how many points should be taken away when there's a turnover in fantasy. Because if he's having a terrible game and throwing 4 interceptions, it doesn't feel like he should also have a good fantasy game. But that is the nature of Taysom Hill right now. So he's starting. Basically, we got confirmation this morning from Sean Payton that he is starting. Adam Schefter reported 4 or 5 days ago that he's expected to play through his finger injury, and now it looks like he's going to. And yes, the finger could affect him as a passer, but that's not why we're starting him in fantasy. He should get Alvin Kamara back this week. Kamara's obviously in, but Mark Ingram is probably a good play. Hill's a good play. I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of them each had at least 1 rushing touchdown. It's the Jets. Ask Gardner Minshew. It's the Jets. And otherwise, we're probably not going to play anybody else. The Saints still have a chance to have at least a pulse in the playoff race with this one, and the Jets are just trying not to mess up a sweet, sweet top 3 pick.
Don't screw it up. But somehow, some way, maybe they will. The Jets side of things, Wilson now with more Elijah Moore, right? And we're learning, hey, Wilson, you can feed the kid. Good, continue feeding the kid. Maybe not so much louder with Crowder, but I'm fine with that as long as it goes to Elijah Moore. Bloom, I want some excitement. You don't get a lot when you look at the Jets. You do if you look at Elijah Moore. So let's talk about the Jets and what they could do against this Saints defense.
Well, we did see at least for a half last week that, and it was the Eagles, that Zach Wilson put together a good half. Zach Wilson gets his number called at the goal line enough that he's got some 2-quarterback super flex appeal, even against the Saints defense. And Elijah Moore is someone we're going to keep in our lineup. He's just too hot to put on the bench right now. And by the way, just as another thing just occurs to me, Cease, normally in years past, when the Saints were traveling to northeastern climes, in December, we'd say that's not good for the Saints offense. Actually, this is the perfect setting for the Saints offense, right? I mean, they have a cold weather offense now with Taysom Hill. The Jets have a little more of a West Coast offense, a finesse offense, but Tevin Coleman has been running pretty well. He's had bad touchdown luck the last few weeks. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to start him because the touchdown luck could break his way because it's the Saints run defense. So he's probably going to run into brick walls, which is another reason to like Elijah Moore, another reason to like Zach Wilson, and maybe with Corey Davis on IR, we could see some Denzel Mims in this one. Looking forward to our snorkel scuba submarine episode. I'm not sure what depth Denzel Mims is at, Cease, but he's probably underwater.
Yeah, it's definitely underwater somewhere. Mariana's Trench.
Yeah,
and Denzel has talent. That's the thing. Like, he just needs a different team. He does not fit what they do at all.
Yeah.
He just needs a different team and a clean start.
By the way, in the chat room, Svinsky says Elijah Moore day-to-day.
More day-to-day. Diego said that as well.
And Tevin Coleman concussion. So, sorry. Maybe the chat room could just run the show from week 14 because it's okay. Abandon hope, all you who enter the Jets offense.
Yes. Get your Ty Johnson stock ready, right? It'll be like Shiba coin.
Ooh.
Not Doge. Not Doge anymore. And Shiba. All about the Shiba or Cardano. Anyway, that's a different show. Let's move on. And this battle in the NFC East. Finally, a fun game, Bloom. Dallas and Washington. This one's going to be fun. This one's going to be big. The big show in Washington. The Dallas side of things first. Jerry Jones is still emphasizing that you're going to see Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to get his normal workload. Tony Pollard is the better back. He's playing better. He's producing more on fewer touches. Like, it's the same old song and dance with Dak Prescott with his weapons. You're just checking over the injury report. Who's healthy? Who's not? That's what we're looking for in terms of just, okay, Dak, who are you throwing to this week? You're going to be throwing to somebody, whether it's Michael Gallup or Dalton Schultz or Amari Cooper, who was eased back against the Saints. He's do a little bit more this time around. Of course, CeeDee Lamb, amazing, outstanding. But this one is so big in this division. Rest of these games, maybe not as much fun. This game, popcorn, ready.
See, I think that the schedule makers maybe were having a little bit when they were putting together the NFC East schedule, or maybe they've stumbled onto something beautiful, a true Thunderdome. I just want to go over this because I think this is so fascinating. We've never seen anything like this before. Let me offer you the remaining schedules for the NFC East teams, okay? Dallas has Washington, Giants, Washington, Arizona, Philadelphia. So they have 4 divisional games left. You see where I'm going with this, right? The Giants have the Chargers, Dallas, Philadelphia, Chicago, Washington. They have 3 divisional games left. Philadelphia is on a bye, and they finish with Washington, Giants, Washington, Dallas. All divisional games left. And Washington has Dallas, Philly, Giants. 5 divisional games left. They've only played 1 divisional game, and it's week 14. This division's going to be decided over the next month. Dallas can't assume anything in this division. Philadelphia could win this, but the Giants aren't going to win the division. Washington could win this division. Maybe this is what we should do, Cease, is have the first 10, 12 weeks of the season just be all of your intra-conference games, and then you just finish with your division and see who gets hottest at the end of the season. And Washington has to feel good about their chances here. I think with Dallas, of course, you're going to have the Pollard and Zeke offense, and we're waiting to see if we're going to get more Pollard. We should get more Pollard. Pollard was one of the biggest reasons they were able to win comfortably against the Saints, along with the defense. Not really Dak Prescott, who wasn't that sharp. However, Amari Cooper should be over the coof now. He's going to help this pass offense. Maybe you like Dak Prescott better as a play this week because of that, although Washington's defense has been good. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Have I mentioned that? CeeDee Lamb looks like he's going to be a league winner. If he was in a similar situation to Justin Jefferson where the pass offense was focused on him, he could be a league winner. He's playing like a league winner. So Lamb's the number 1 here. And I think we have to also keep in mind with a healthy Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz, not really feeling it. I think that we haven't seen a good sample of what Dalton Schultz does in this pass offense when all hands are on deck. So I think that we look at this Washington defense that has been playing a lot better, including against the likes of Tampa Bay. So they've quieted some teams during this winning streak that have an arsenal. Dallas certainly has one. Their offense isn't clicking right now. One thing that is clicking for sure, as we are celebrating him in the chat room, the man, Antonio Gibson.
The man, Antonio Gibson. Now, I did see, was it Svinsky? Yeah, it was Svinsky. McKissick returned to practice today.
Yep.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. And you know how often I love starting Terry McLaurin?
Every day.
That's right. Every day.
Every day.
Terry McLaurin in my lineup, even last week when it wasn't so good.
Every day.
He's still going to be in there.
Yeah.
And Taylor Heineke with this team, just slinging it, having fun. Now we're going to look at the tight end position because is Ricky Seals-Jones going to play or is it John Bates? Bates not necessarily exciting. So we know the assets there. McLaurin should have a bounce back game. I don't see him being held down a couple of weeks in a row. If Dallas does get off like Dallas should take off, then Washington's going to have to put some points up, and it can't all be the man Antonio Gibson Bloom. It's going to have to be others. Who are they?
It is. J.D. McKissick is a good bet here. I mean, as a what the heck flex type, but he's going to play a role here along with Antonio Gibson. And then there's Terry McLaurin, and like you said, you're probably going to stick with him. Remember, this Dallas secondary can give up big plays. They can make big plays. Maybe Ricky Seals-Jones, not so much for fantasy, but that could help this offense. I wonder if Curtis Samuel could be that X factor. I wonder if Curtis Samuel, because teams don't have a lot of tape on him, although Scott Turner knows how to use him from their time together back in Carolina. Go ahead.
It's going to happen, but no one's going to be starting him when it does, and then it'll go away. That's what I feel about Curtis Samuel. It'll be like, oh my God, if finally, because we're waiting for it, Bloom, right?
Right.
It just makes sense that it would happen, and now we're still waiting.
Yeah, it would be a great game to unleash him. Now, that being said, again, keep in mind, Washington and Dallas play again in 2 weeks. So whatever you do, you better not show all your cards because you have to turn around and play each other again. Schedule makers. We love it. This team is not dead by any measure. Remember, they made the playoffs last year. And it's just a picture of this season where we said Taylor Heineke, remember we said he's topped out, he's a backup, he's shown everybody he's a backup. It's great. And coming out of the bye, we weren't even sure if he was going to start. We thought we might see Kyle Allen. Now this team's on a 4-game winning streak. Now we might see Taylor Heineke get another playoff start. Winning this week would be a big step towards that outcome.
Yeah, which is a constant reminder, like it's in your hands, man.
Yeah.
It's in your hands. Taylor Heineke, it's in your hands, and you've done a fantastic job. Final game we're going to talk about, part 1 of the Week 14 preview here on the Audible. It's Atlanta and Carolina, and I don't know, Bloom. Hayden Hurst has been cleared for practice. Yay. I'm just looking over the Atlanta news. It's like, you're going to get to an alliteration game from Kyle Pitts again, or you're going to get more?
Right.
You're going to get more from Cordell Patterson. We know that. Against Carolina, it seems like, well, maybe I'll start Mike Davis as a what the heck flex. Like it is against Carolina, Bloom. So maybe some fantasy assets not named Russell Gage or Kyle Pitts will do something for the Atlanta Falcons.
See, since I'm really a true New Orleans convert now, I'm still a Steelers fan, but I have to do this because we're on the Falcons. We got this out. I don't know if you can see this. First of all, this is a Zulu coconut. This is like one of the most valuable things you can get in Mardi Gras, the Zulu coconut. You can see what this has here. Never forget. So, that's what we have going for us down in New Orleans. Football scene right now is we'll always have 28-3. Atlanta and Carolina had 19-13 the first time they played. Not exactly an inspiring score for fantasy football purposes. This is a draft position game. I think these teams are 8-9 or 9-10 right now in the draft. So this game could go a long way towards deciding who picks first and maybe change the destiny of both franchises. Kyle Pitts is probably going to draw Stephon Gilmore as he did in the first matchup. So that means we're looking at Russell Gage getting a ton of targets again. And Cordell Patterson, he will definitely get his in the running game. What about the passing game? That's been dwindling. So does Arthur Smith have something up his sleeve in this one to use Patterson more in the passing game? Because without Kyle Pitts, likely tied up with Stephon Gilmore, Russell Gage can only do so much. We'll see if it is potentially a big game for Cordell Patterson, and we'll see what we're going to get 30 runs out of the Panthers offense this week. I know that's what Matt Rule wants, Cecil.
Yeah, Matt Rule wants that because of his unsteady quarterback situation. Is that the best way we can put it?
Yeah.
And then Chuba Hubbard, everyone fired up to get ready to play Chuba Hubbard in this matchup against Atlanta. But with Cam being Cam, you're wondering about the rest of your Panthers assets and like, who are you trusting in any of them? I think we had a DJ Moore question in the chat room. It's like, well, not this week. He's going to blow up on a lot of benches if he actually does, in fact, blow up.
Yeah, and both these teams are still technically alive at 5-7. Atlanta, I think you're going to like DJ Moore more in the games coming up against Buffalo and Tampa than this game against Atlanta. I do think you're going to see a lot of running. Now, that being said, that Tampa team threw the ball 51 times last week against Atlanta and only run the ball 17 times. Matt Rule says that's terrible. Fire the offensive coordinator. That's unacceptable. But I do think that means you're going to see a lot of Chuba Hubbard, maybe some Amir Abdullah. Certainly Amir Abdullah could be leading receiver for this team. And Cam Newton. I don't know if Cam Newton's a good fantasy start. Last time we saw him, it was in Miami, and Miami can really torture quarterbacks. That being said, you would think here's an easy way to get the 30 runs every game is having Cam Newton as your quarterback, right? And maybe Joe Brady wouldn't have been fired if Cam Newton was the quarterback all year. So I think it's a wait-and-see game, like you said about DJ Moore. And we won't see this game. We'll be watching other games. We'll watch to see if it's better than the 19-13 outcome the first time.
That's right. People love what's on your shelves, Bloom.
Yeah.
They love your festive shelves. That's why you got to check us out on youtube.com/footballguys, because you can see your backdrop.
Yeah. That's a big assist to Kate. She does all the. I do the wardrobe, as you can tell, but she does the sets.
Okay, and I guess since we're doing a little bit of show and tell, people are always curious what's on my bookshelf behind me besides comic books. I'm actually going through this as well. History on Japanese throwing weapons.
That's fantastic. Cece.
And I'm getting Sue Immortal issue #1 done. Let me show you this picture. But go ahead, tell your story, and then I got to show you this picture.
It could intersect, right? Because unfortunately, and this people might be able to tell us about me. Like I watched a lot of TV when I was a kid, and I could stay up late from when I was really young. From when I was 5 or 6 years old, I could stay up late as I wanted, and we had just gotten HBO, so I stay up and watch the Blues Brothers, or Caddyshack, And there was a movie on once. When I was 7, 8, 9, called Revenge of the Ninja.
I have that on Blu-ray, a hard copy of it, because I love Revenge of the Ninja.
It's
with
an amazing
Sho
film.
Kosugi.
Sho Kosugi, yes.
Sho Kosugi, and his son actually is in it as well, because he's the little kid in that. Revenge. There's Enter the Ninja, and then there's Revenge of the Ninja, and Sho was in a bunch of others. But it's the one with the guy with the death row mask.
Yep.
He's got like the silver mask, and then he like splits it. When Sho beats him at the end, he splits his mask, and it's his best friend. Oh my God! Plot twist.
Right.
And because it was on HBO, there was adult hot tub scene.
When you would stay up late as a 7 or 8 year old, but that was what gave you this imagery in your head as a kid of throwing stars and nunchucks and all of these different amazing things. So your Japanese throwing weapons book really takes me back.
Yeah, now check out that picture, because my design of Sue Immortal, who's one of my superhero characters, and you can see more at SueImmortal.com. He's suicidal and immortal. He's got his shurikens along his forearm. Yeah. So that was hidden up their sleeves.
Up your sleeve. There you go. See, sleeve. Language. Yeah. Got something up your sleeve. Oh, yeah.
It's a shuriken.
Right.
You got something up your sleeve with the Audible, and it's footballguys.com. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching and for listening. Before you're out of here, make sure you do those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. At least we hope. And if you've chatted in the chat room, thank you. We appreciate you. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. Helps with the ever elusive YouTube algorithm. He is Sigmund Bloom. He's not elusive on Twitter. He's at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey. I barely check the app, but I appreciate all the follows. I'm just going to be honest.
Right.
And I look at my replies. I do look at my replies. I don't participate in the other nonsense, but that's just me. I'm old and grumpy most of the time, but I'm happy here with you, and I'm happy if you follow us at the Audible. Thank you for making us one of the most listened to fantasy football podcasts that there is in history. Everyone, we appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Stay tuned and stay frosty.